Make us instruments of your peace.
Where there is hatred, let us sow love.
Where there is injury, pardon.
Where there is doubt,
Faith. Where there is despair, hope.
Where there is darkness,
light. And where there is sadness, joy. O Divine Master,
grant that we may not so much seek
to be consoled as to console,
to be understood as to understand,
to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive,
it is in pardoning that we are pardoned,
and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen.
WESN.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
want to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
Money is something we all deal with, but how many of us truly understand it? What if you could make better decisions with your money? Decisions that secure your future, protect your family, and bring you peace of mind. I'm Darren Jacobs, and I'm here to help you make sense of your dollars. Welcome to Dollars and Cents, the show that breaks down the financial world in ways that matter to you. No jargon, no confusion, just real conversations about money, your money. So join me every Wednesday at 10 a.m. on WESN for Dollars and Cents.
This is 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward and our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region.
Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada in spite of the obvious difference in size.
WESN.
Hello
there, and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. I'm Keaton Shaw. Thank you very much for joining us for this edition of the program. Hope all is well with you as we start this morning's discussions. Well, politics can be a story of loyalty or betrayal, depending on who you ask or depending on one's perspectives. But for each, there is a political price involved. But putting aside politics for a moment and speaking to the individual, the politician that held a role in an office for 5+ years, was a member of parliament, and had many other roles previously, as they demit office, exactly what is going through their mind? Is it easy leaving such an opportunity to sue? Is it easy moving on from a position that gave you a sense of power, but a sense of power that can be used to help individuals, to make Trinidad and Tobago a better place? Or is it a sense of relief to move away from all the stress involved? Well, I see that there's an answer already. Let me introduce my guest, MP for Naparima, outgoing MP for Naparima, Rodney Charles. Good morning, Mr. Charles, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, sir, and welcome to you and your viewers. And
Thank you very much. Hope all is well with you. I noticed during my introduction, it seems as though you had a response almost immediately, and I don't know if you'd like to share that with us now.
Yes. Some points that you raised, and one in particular caught my attention, the question of a sense of power. And the question I asked myself is, what power do I have as an opposition MP? You go to Parliament, for example, and you talk, you get coverage in the media, front page, nobody, two weeks after, nobody cares, nobody knows. We have had, for example, I've been at 10 budget debates, made suggestions which I think are reasonable, worthy of consideration. Not one change was made to any of the budgets because of contributions by myself or members of the opposition. We have no budgets. And there's a problem in Trinidad and Tobago where I think they deliberately miseducate the population. So people will come to my office and say, Mr. MP, Minister, they say in the first place, Minister, what about the road? Why you don't fix my box train? Why don't you get my child transferred to another school? Why don't you not get a job? And realistically, you have to explain to them that my job is only to lobby, to represent you. I could make a case, I could plead with the government to fix the road. So here's the problem I have. I plead with Minister Sinanan to fix the road, but a day after in Parliament, I have to criticize his performance, in the most serious terms. So he's looking at me and saying, well, Charles, are you a friend or not? Should I help you or not? So unless we have, and the guru of our party, Mr. Pandey, was right, we need constitutional reform. You cannot have 19 MPs sitting down there with no budgets, no power. The only thing they can do is plead and beg. And oftentimes the government deliberately ignores opposition constituencies. So my view is, it is an overrated, glorified, cynical. I mean, this is brutally honest here. And neither Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, as leader of the opposition, nor any of my colleague MPs could force action by a government that does not listen, is not willing to listen, or in my view, does not care. So whereas in my time, we had books like The Student's Companion, where people knew the role of the MP, the role of the councillor, the role of the prime minister, the role of the minister. That does not seem to be part of the education system in Trinidad and Tobago. So people will turn and say, I see people look performance appraisal of opposition MPs. They would accuse us of not fixing roads, not fixing their buildings, not getting the children transferred, not helping them with medicine and whatnot. And the reality is you have to dip in your pockets to do that. And it hurts. So it's a sense of relief. But I'm going to push for constitutional reform so that unless we do that, we have half of our population sitting on the sidelines doing nothing, and the other half incapable of taking our country forward at a time when we need all hands on deck.
And Charles, do you think that your time in office, I mean, due to these challenges that you've pointed out and the need for constitutional reform, would you describe your time in office as being one of productivity?
Well, it depends on how you define productivity. If you define productivity as raising the issues that need to be addressed in Trinidad and Tobago, I would say yes. If it is a question of holding the government to account, yes. If it is a question of making sure we have good laws, I would say 50-50. Sometimes in joint select committees, there are opportunities to amend laws and whatnot. But at the end of the day, we have inherited a system where the Prime Minister has all the power. We have a constitutional dictatorship. And if he decides that he's ignoring the opposition, then what is left? What is left in terms of performance? Throughout my life, I have sought to make a difference. When I was at NP as marketing manager, I insisted in fairness to Ms. Carolyn Sipasad Bachan, who was the chairman, that we upgrade the service station network, that we introduced the quick shop idea. You would recall that we had about 20 or 30 years of dilapidated service stations, and there was no incentive to. So I did that. Underground fiberglass, double wall, underground tanks with leak detection systems to ensure that we are not poisoned by tanks, steel tanks with pinhole leaks into the environment. So that was my contribution there. When I went to Costat, I introduced the School of Journalism because I got a scholarship in my earlier, when I was young, just out of Mausica, to study journalism at Carleton University. Because like all people, I went into public relations, not journalism. Journalism, as you know, does not pay. Commensurate with one's qualifications and ability. So I went into public relations, made money, reasonable money, took care of my family, but I had my guilty conscience. So I created the School of Journalism single-handedly together with George John and some others. So that was my achievement. And in fact, a number of journalists today, I see you former students, of journalism. And so that was at that level. When I went to the UN, Trinidad was ignored at the UN. We were irrelevant. Our mission was the worst among CARICOM. So when you invited people, you had chairs. I used to call them dollar rescue chairs. You embarrassed chairs covered with plastic, that kind of furniture. So I immediately said, what are the critical jobs in the UN? They told me the two important jobs are President of the General Assembly and a non-permanent seat in the Security Council. We never had that since 1962 when we joined the UN. So I told them, I want that now for Trinidad. They say you can't get it because it is every 10 years the President of the General Assembly becomes available to CARICOM. So, and they have already agreed that it would be the ambassador for John Ash from Antigua and Barbuda. And if you were to put your name, it would be embarrassing because we have already agreed, gentleman's agreement, that we would support him. So I said, when next is it coming to CARICOM? They say in 2013. I said, put Trinidad and Trinidad and Tobago for that post. And they all agreed because they said Trinidad and Tobago never stood up and lived up to its greatness within CARICOM. So I put our name, and 2013, last year, we had Ambassador Francis as our President of the General Assembly, and in 2 years' time, we are going to have a Trinidad person as holding the non-permanent seat on the Security Council. Two major appointments, never before done by Trinidad, and done when I was there. So I came to the Parliament thinking I would do something like that, leave a legacy. I'm not sure. I'm confessing here, I am not sure.
What is your biggest disappointment at Charles? Because you've spoken of your achievements, and one could appreciate that, but with the frustration that you've expressed and you've been vocal of over the last year, what are some of your biggest disappointments?
My major disappointment is my party United National Congress, which has done a lot for me and which I love. And I'll never move from the United National Congress. Problem in the United Congress is I do not think that we have a mechanism, even with screening, to produce the best and the brightest, so that we could be a force in the politics of Trinidad and Tobago. And I always make the point that the children of the sugarcane workers win the island scholarship. They win island. You go through the list from SEA to the Cape exams and whatnot. We top the list, a lot of them from Naparima. And where are they? Our job should be to attract these young, bright, after we make our contribution, attract these young, bright individuals and bring them into the politics. The only person who, I call it Island Scholarship, you know, I think the name now is President Award or what, who has an Island Scholarship winner in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago is Anita Haynes, the only one out of 41 of us. And I'm saying something is wrong with the politics of Trinidad and Tobago when you have septuagenarians, people 70 years holding on to power on both sides of the divide. And I'm saying, if at 70 you have not made a significant change in the politics and the life of Trinidad and Tobago and propelled us into the 21st century, then what are you waiting on to make this contribution? And in fact, the time has come for us to think seriously like Singapore about succession planning in the leadership of Trinidad and Tobago. I see, for example, Karim, the gentleman, Karim Marcel, I think his name is, and the euphoria, the happiness. Here we bring in young people into the politics, and he's talking about bringing the gangs together in a way that people of my age group cannot do. Let's face it. We are unable to communicate with young people, to get them to drop the guns. And maybe it is time for us to bring the young people into the politics. So I have a Prime Minister's question. Next time we have Prime Minister's question day. And I want to ask the Prime Minister what he thinks what would he like his legacy to be in terms of the concept of succession planning and bringing a new generation of leaders into the politics of Trinidad and Tobago, groomed, mentored, and trained, so that Trinidad and Tobago will have, the baton will be passed to that generation. I make the point in Singapore, the past president up to a year ago, I can't recall his name, he was 70, he was 68. And he handed over to the present Prime Minister, who is 52. And he said that this is part of the plan to make sure that Singapore remains at the cutting edge of leadership in the world. And we in Trinidad have people holding on to power, saying they want to leave, but I know how it works. You say it, but you take all steps to ensure that it does not happen. And that is the kind of frustration I have.
This is a question that you plan to pose to the Prime Minister. Is this the question you also plan to pose one day to the current opposition leader, Mrs. Canon Pasabi-Sessa?
Well, of course. Of course. I have sat next to the current opposition leader for about 8 years. And anytime I get a chance, I say, leader, we need to we cannot go into a test match cricket, to use the analogy. Test match cricket with a pickup side. We need the population should be able to look at an individual and say, you see, that fellow, he could transform the economy of Trinidad and Tobago and put us on our diversification and create jobs and whatnot. We should be able to look at a person and say, you see, that fellow, he is capable of, that MP is capable of being the next Attorney General that will create laws that will take us to the next level. We must be able to look at a Minister of Energy, not an ordinary person like you and me. As Manning used to say, all you need is what? Common sense and a level head. We are past that stage. When you sit with when the energy minister from Singapore, understand as a Harvard trained man, and he has had a track record in energy transformation. So when he gets the job, people have confidence. I do not think that my leader understands that the time has come for Trinidad and Tobago to pick the best and the brightest to represent us on the world stage. And I think that is part of the challenge for the leadership at both levels in Trinidad. So it is a national crisis, not a UNC problem.
And that's a fair point. But I'm curious to know if this was one of the reasons behind your decision to no longer run in electoral politics.
Well, of course, and I said so. I said that I am leaving because at 70, I'm 75. And in March, I was 75. Next year, I'll be 76. If I serve 5 years, it'll be 81. For heaven's sake, what am I doing there? My job is to mentor. The problem I have is if I were to say Mr. Keaton Shah is a person who I would like to mentor, to take over from me, the mere fact I mention your name, you wouldn't get it because I'm seen as a dissident. So I have to keep quiet. People come and I see talent and I see brilliance and I see excellence and I see a future. And they ask me to support them and I have to tell them that if I support you, that is a kiss of death for you. So I have to keep quiet and sit in the background and help you in the back. Why should we have to operate with subterfuge in order to help Trinidad and Tobago? I would like I've seen people who I know could make a difference at Trinidad and Tobago. One, they don't want to come because the politics in Trinidad is not encouraging for young people. That's one. The second thing, they're going to come and they will have to take instructions from mediocre, second-class, third-rate people who will call you and tell you, Rodney, the leader say. And once the leader say, you know you have to obey. You know, you can't ask a question. You can't engage. The other problem in Trinidad and Tobago politics is our leaders do not know how to handle dissent. Right? So that how do I tell in cabinet, if I were a PNM and I'm sitting in Mr. Rowley's cabinet, how is it, do we train our secondary and school graduates and our university graduates to accept dissenting views in a manner that is not toxic? You know, so you can't, the politics in Trinidad is one of the leaders says so, the leader is always right. And if the leader is wrong, the leader is right. And so people will tell you, Charles, I agree with what you're saying, you know, but the leader said. And, you know, therefore, that means you have to halt your discourse.
Well, why even refer to this as dissent? Why is it even referred to or considered dissent?
Well, I did that because they refer to us as dissenters, right? But it is alternative views. So that if I were a leader, I would encourage varying views. You know, one would say this, another one would say that, somebody else would say that. And I, as a leader, would sit down and in the quiet of my, you know, time at night, sit down and analyze these views and say, well, okay, there's merit in part of that, merit in this, merit in that. I'll take parts of this and that and come up with something good. What we have in Trinidad and Tobago is the leader says, and once the leader says, everybody has to fall in line. That is Eric Williams' legacy to Trinidad and Tobago. When I talk, he said it, no damn dog bark, right? And that has followed through with Manning, followed through with Chambers, with Pandey, with Kamala Prasad Bisesa, and now I suspect with Dr. Rowley. And unless Trinidad and Tobago is able to tap into the diverse views. And this is the greatness of Trinidad and Tobago. God put us here. He put all the religions, all the philosophies of planet Earth in this small place. Islam, the Middle East. Hinduism, a 6,000-year-old religion. Christianity, Orisha. He put us here together and say, well, look, you're in 2,000 square miles. We should come up with a global philosophy on every topic, whether it be love, whether it be politics, whether it be family life and whatnot, drawing from these strands of philosophy from planet Earth and come up with a unique doubles, you know, a callaloo of creative ideas. But what we have is leaders who shut us down. So we operate in our silos, and people will tell you after a meeting, they will discuss and I will tell you, there were a number of MPs who told me who told me, Charles, we need change in the party. They told me and encouraged me to lead the battle. And when you turn around, these same people will tell you, Charles, you know, we support you, you know, but we can't, we will get licked, we'll get blows, we'll get destroyed, etc. I have had a function, a Diwali function, where councillors would give me things and tell me, don't call their names. Because if I call their names, kiss of death, they will get eliminated. No, why? Why? And this is the frustration that you know, that if we, sometimes it's better to just drink, have a good time, go in the rum shop, lime, keep quiet, say nothing, do nothing. That is why a lot of our people just, you know, pop out.
You speak about frustration, and I'm curious as to what is more frustrating, being an opposition MP that can only lobby and not necessarily get what they want to get done for their constituency, for whatever the reason may be, or being a member of this current United National Congress. Focusing now on you personally, what has been more frustrating?
What has been more frustrating in terms of, you say, opposition politics?
Being an opposition MP, you spoke earlier about how the fact is really your position is to lobby in Parliament, and what you want to get done for your constituency. There are limitations to that, being in opposition. But you've also spoken about the frustration of the internal politics. What is more frustrating, being a member of this current United National Congress, or being a member of the opposition at this time? If you understand where
I live in hope. Yes, I understand. I live in hope that belatedly my party could be the catalyst for changing the politics of Trinidad and Tobago. I am not entirely hopeless in that regard. I was brought into the UNC politics by Mr. Bastio Pandey, who I now realize was one of the greatest leaders in Trinidad and Tobago. He was the man who introduced one man, one vote into politics. He was equal opportunity legislation. A host of the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, for whatever the PNM say, significantly was as a result of his drive, because he came out of the disadvantaged trade union movement. And he wanted everybody in Trinidad. That is why he gave a Baptist holiday. So I hold on to that dream of UNC politics being a vehicle for the poor man, for the disadvantaged, the homeless, the dispossessed, those from the lagoon, to have a say in the politics of Trinidad and Tobago. Too often the politics had been determined by what I call duncy head people from the East-West corridor, from Port of Spain in particular. They're in the Yacht Club, they're in the Queen's Park Club, they're not Islands Call winner, but they have money and a loud voice. So they talk and you have to listen. And when you analyze what they're saying, it does not make sense. And Eric Williams made that point, that no greatness came out of the planter class in Trinidad and Tobago. Nothing. No great history, no great philosophy, no great Nobel Prize winners, none. But they have, because of campaign finance reform, which is another issue, they have an overwhelming weight in the politics of Trinidad and Tobago. So even in my party, I suspect in the PNM, if I say we need this candidate, or we should follow this policy, and a person I suspect, and here again I'm not talking from evidence, walks in with a $5 million check and say, I want Mr. Keaton Shah to be the candidate for Naparima, you will get it. You know, that is how it works in Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, unfortunately, the evidence is there. They get the best contracts, they get everything, and they have an overwhelming voice in the politics of Trinidad and Tobago that is keeping us back, which is that. So two things we need. We need constitutional reform. We need reform in terms of the parliament being able to seriously hold the government to account. We cannot. The chief whip of the PNM, she will come and say, listen, the prime minister, we want the prime minister to talk today, and he must talk until he finishes his speech. And we say, but no, they're standing orders which limit us to 45 minutes, etc. And you just get up and say, okay, we put it to the vote. And they vote, and they win the vote, and therefore the Prime Minister gets up and he talks for whenever, 100 minutes or whatever. He has, and the Speaker is there, and let's face it, she's appointed by, or all speakers are appointed by the Prime Minister, and they must toe the line so that you know when you get up to talk. And if the Prime Minister is annoyed at what you are saying, you know you're going to get, I have seen it, you know you're going to get censored at some point. Mr. Charles, withdraw that point. I raised a point I remember once about the cars, the question of the cars we get in the lunch. And I saying, look, I have a RAV4 for the past 8 years in Parliament, and I'm not changing it. And therefore, I'm contented. Why should we have that? I was booked up and shut down and threatened to put out of Parliament for raising that point. And I know because you're talking here against the Zygis. You're talking here against what obtains in the system. So it is most uncomfortable to raise certain issues even in the Parliament. So that I am not, don't get the impression that I am hopeless and I'm doom and gloom and it's negative. It's entirely negative. There's some positives in Trinidad and Tobago, and I just say that I want to spend my time with my grandchildren. There's one. Secondly, I want to spend my time. I have an idea that we, the white people, the colonial masters left us with secondary school sports. They left us with cricket, football, and running, what they call track and field. And after independence, by and large, when we go to the Olympics, it's track and field. Well, not cricket yet, but soccer, we don't make it, but we try. Why can't we? I went to Naparima College, and when you looked over the balcony, you see Farallon, you see the sea, calm waters. And I'm saying, why we never looked at the marine environment and then brought it into the sporting and in the economy of Trinidad and Tobago in significant ways. So one of the things I want to do is go to the big shots in Trinidad and say, listen, let's have an intercall once a year, probably on New Year's Day, and we will have Naparima against Presentation, against Pleasantville, against Benedict's, and they start to row, and they go to Farallon, and they come back, right? And in the hope within 10 years, just like I had to wait 10 years to get president of the General Assembly, right? And 10 years to get non-permanent seat on the Security Council. Within 10 years, we could have a reasonable team going up and rowing at the Olympics to give the US and Norway and those Sweden and those rich countries a run for their money because we have the seat.
You still plan on advocating and lobbying in your retirement?
Yes, but and perhaps I'll be more successful because one of the problems I face as an opposition MP, you go to a businessman and you lobby for financial help and you say, Charles, look, I can't help you publicly. I will give you a little, not even a check. They don't want your name on the check, so they hand you a $2,000 in a bag. Now, since I do not have the opposition politics tag, I could now lobby in the interest of Trinidad and Tobago and say, listen, what do you think about this sport, rowing? And what do you think about, let's start with Presentation and Naparima, but let's bring in Pleasantville. And how much would that cost? Who do we need to bring down from the Rowing Association in England? Every year there's a Harvard, a Oxford, Cambridge rowing competition on the Thames. Could we get equipment from them, expertise from them, so that we will have another Olympic sport, and to give the young people in secondary school an opportunity, those who cannot play football or cricket, there's an opportunity for them to excel. So that is my mission now. I may fail, but I'll try.
Well, in that regard, I've listened to you, you've expressed yourself, and you've been very open and quite frank this morning, quite true. But I'm from your perspective, from when you first entered politics to now, would you say that the politics of Trinidad and Tobago has evolved for the better or for the worse? I have an idea given all that you've expressed this morning, but I want to hear from you.
it has evolved, it has remained, it has plateaued, right? The model that we inherited from the colonial masters, Westminster model, it has run its course. It has nowhere to go. It cannot help us. So I'll give you an example. The Prime Minister will talk about the SRC and increase salaries and what. And you realize what has happened? He has brought it to Parliament, and he has said he's writing a cabinet note. So we are irrelevant. So the question is, if we are a co-equal branch of government, Parliament, are we equal really to the executive, which is the Prime Minister and his cabinet? We are stepchildren, we are Cinderellas, really. That is the model that we have inherited. So we cannot have a proper oversight over expenditures by the executive or appointments by the executive. Hear what they do to us. They tell us in the appointment of the DCOPs, Deputy Commissioner of Police and the Commissioner of Police, they have the Police Service Commission go through the process. They identify some persons, send it to the president sends it to the Prime Minister brings it to Parliament. All they give you is a CV. And you have a CV here, and on the basis of this CV, I have to support whoever the nominee for Commissioner of Police. And if I raise the question of a CV, they tell me, listen, let me tell you something. The reality is we don't have to listen to you. You know, we have the majority of votes. And therefore, who we say, whether it's Gary Griffith, years past, or we say is Earl Christopher, so it shall be. So when you're told that, what do you do? So the point I'm raising is that the time has come. If we do not reform our parliamentary system, our judiciary, our leadership, succession planning within the parties, political parties, Trinidad and Tobago will go nowhere. And when the oil and gas runs out, as is happening right now, because we are a maturing field, we will gradually cede leadership in CARICOM to the other countries. And I want you to take a visit to Castries, Barbados, and open your eyes. Just drive anywhere and open your eyes, and you get a sense of a country moving forward. You get a sense of cleanliness, no garbage, no vagrants sleeping on the ground, defecating in front of. What is this? This is not the country that we are better than this. I'm sorry to sound, passionate.
You made a comment earlier which kind of, stayed with me. You spoke about your time in the UN where you said TNT, didn't have the opportunity then to show its true power to the world and to show its true promise to the world. And I'm wondering if we've still been able to do that. They say charity begins at home. Have we even recognized that or realized that ourselves?
I get the impression that we get content. The population has been beaten into submission. That what happens, you go in a rum shop, and you hear some ideas from people who you would think, where you get that idea from? Brilliant from people I talk. These are people who are unemployed, shoemakers, taxi drivers and whatnot. And you listen and you say, well, we have talent in this country. But the problem is there are no opportunities and vehicles for translating these things, because at the end of the day, we have a leadership that is selfish, a leadership that is self-serving, a leadership that brooks no other views. And therefore, the challenge and I think part of it is the education system in Trinidad and Tobago, that produces, and I see it in Parliament, when you look at it and you say, well, who over there in the P&M side could transform this economy Singapore style? Who in this Parliament can make us a world leader? When I was at the UN, I was invited by governments, Germany, Australia. I went to Canberra. They paid for me to go. A little country, Nauru, wanted me on the what they call AOSIS, Association of Small Island States. They paid for me. They sent a check for $5,000. You could go and check in our accounts in the United. They sent a check for me to attend. I went to Azerbaijan. I went to Spain. I went to Bangladesh. I went to New Delhi. All these countries paid for it because they began to see Trinidad operating punching above its weight. I remember the German ambassador said, Charles, you all, Trinidad and Tobago should be, at that time our economy was booming, the price of oil $100 a barrel. He said Trinidad and Tobago should be the leader in CARICOM. When I was there, the Minister of Foreign Affairs from Jamaica, then Minister, called me and told me, he said, let us decide. Because what Jamaica and Trinidad decides, the rest have to follow. Because they wanted Trinidad and Tobago to rise up to its greatness. When Eric Williams was Prime Minister and the United States put an embargo on Cuba, he, together with Barbados and Guyana and Jamaica, stood up to the mighty US and said, you are wrong. And they worked to develop a motion at the United Nations to tell the United States that the embargo, the Cuban embargo, was a false statement. Hey, Trinidad and Tobago under Eric Williams. Where are we today? Me and Motley is running the show. What's his name from St. Vincent? Prime Minister Gonzalez. Dr. Ralph Gonzalez and his son Camilio Gonzalez, who was the ambassador then at the UN, his son, who is now finance minister in St. Vincent. They are the leaders in CARICOM. We are gradually, we have gone back to where we were pre-1972. Imagine Trinidad and Tobago. 62, we were in 1960, we joined the United Nations. And in 2012, we were renting a rundown canning building, paying $50,000 US every month. Let me tell you what we did. We bought for $12.8 million one of the best chancelleries in Manhattan because prices were going down. The United States was going through a depression and properties were free. It was $12.8 million. We bought it. And you know what happened? Whenever CARICOM wanted a meeting, they would always put it in our mission. So therefore, we became the center for when countries, long ago when they went, they would go to CARICOM, they host a meeting with CARICOM, they went in the Jamaica mission. No, Trinidad mission. That property is now worth $50 million. And it has brought in $10 million in rent because we rented a part. And I am telling the government of Trinidad, but they wouldn't listen, that if we have a big building for the consulate on Wall Street. If we rent out that building and move the consulate to our building and move out the we would the rents we will get from that building could run the mission and it will be no cost to Trinidad and Tobago. That is the kind of vision that I'm sure the talent exists all around. There are people better than me who could come up with better ideas. Instead, we have two buildings, and the government, I do not know, they have a plan or any idea about the kind of cost that costs in terms of foreign exchange in Trinidad and Tobago. There are many things that, and the only reason I knew about that was because when I was NP for about 5 years, I served as property manager for all the properties in all the gas stations, 212 gas stations at the time. So they send you on courses and whatnot. So you learn how to make properties work for you. So you have, for example, you had a gas station. You had a gas station only selling gas. And you say, well, wait now, how many times a car comes to this thing per week? It comes 4 times on average or twice a week. And so each gas station has about 40,000 customers. How could we get more money from them? And there's the quick shop idea. So when they come, we have things for them to buy because they have a captive audience in it. And then you put things so the children in the car can see the ice cream and see the thing and whatnot. Those are the kinds of innovations that Trinidad and Tobago need. And I'm sorry to take your program and highlight some of the concerns.
No, I honestly think, and I appreciate that. I honestly think that it's good that you do that. To highlight these issues and points. I'm glad that you're speaking about it.
I have lost your voice.
I hope you can hear me now. Yeah. I hope the audio is a bit better. Can you hear me now?
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing. I'm not hearing.
All right, is the audio a bit better? Okay, I think there's something happening with the audio. Yeah, I see you, MP Charles. I'm sorry about that. Something has happened with the audio. I think probably from the studio. And by chance, are you hearing me now, MP Charles? All right, no, it seems as though we've lost audio there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so with that, I think I don't think we will have much time to actually try and resolve that issue. There was more I wanted to ask MP Charles, but I think at this point, we are just going to, he can't hear me, but I'm going to say it on air to thank him very much for joining us on the program for this extended conversation. Initially, we booked 25 minutes with MP Charles, and I'm glad that we were able to have this conversation. There was a lot more I wanted to ask, but unfortunately, we it seems to have some difficulties there in not being able to ask those questions. So thank you very much to MP Charles for joining us. Thank you very much, of course, for his service to Trinidad and Tobago in all capacities. And of course, we wish him all the very best. He still has time in office. He's not exiting right now. But it's the final lap, ladies and gentlemen, on his political career in terms of electoral politics.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Here's your chance to win a bicycle, a ride-on, or a hoverboard. Shop at dbesttoys.com and spend $300 or more to win big.
We've got Barbie,
Hot Wheels, Gel Blasters, Ride-ons,
Leapfrog,
Nerf, bicycles and tricycles.
Greco, and Wonder Baby.
Visit us in store at Forces flagship McBean, Movietown, Port of Spain,
Eastgate Mall, and M6 Plaza Endeavour.
Merry Christmas, everyone!
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, Vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for being with us this morning as we continue the conversation, shifting focus now actually on fireworks legislation in Trinidad and Tobago in 2022 when Reginald Amor assumed the office of Attorney General. He spoke that fireworks legislation was one of the areas he would focus on. It has been 2 years since, and nothing much had come from the Attorney General except a cabinet subcommittee was established, though we know very little as per who is a part of this committee and exactly what it is they are working on in respect to fireworks legislation. That being said, the Fireworks Actions Coalition of Trinidad and Tobago has indicated they've basically indicated their frustration. They've written to the Attorney General, giving him 15 days to respond publicly over the delay as it relates, or the inaction as per fireworks legislation. I'm joined this morning by a member, a person who leads the Fireworks Action Coalition Committee, the coordinator, Mr. Roger Marshall. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the program.
Morning, Keaton. Morning to you and your viewers.
Thank you very much for joining us once more, Mr. Marshall. As we were reflecting, it has been some time since we last spoke, though, with how time has flown, it's simply suggested to me it was a couple of months ago. It was probably a year ago. But Mr. Marshall, the committee has written to the Attorney General seeking a response, a public response, a public explanation in 15 days from the date of which the letter was sent. How have we gotten to this point? If you can give us a review as to how we've gotten to this point.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. And you said in your introduction just now that a committee had been established, or the current Attorney General had said he had established a parliamentary committee or a cabinet subcommittee to study this issue of fireworks. But we've been able to get no facts about that. Who are the members of this committee? What are they doing? What are they proposing? And we question whether a committee has in fact been formed, and if so, if they're meeting and if they're doing anything. Let's remember that this issue goes back 21 years, over 21 years. In 2013, the Law Reform Commission put out a paper recommending that the issue of fireworks, or the use of fireworks, needed to be legislated to protect citizens, to protect the environment, and even the security of the country. That's 21 years ago. Subsequent to that, the previous Attorney General for 6 years was moving pieces around, making promises. He stood up in cabinet in Parliament one day and promised the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago that he would deal with this issue of fireworks. He left office with nothing having been delivered. Let's recall that the Attorney General's office has publicly said that fireworks is an issue of public importance, deserving of urgent attention. Yet we get zero attention. So, what it is, we are feeling now that this is a dereliction of duty. They have abandoned their responsibility. The Constitution requires the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago to make laws for the peace, order, and good governance of Trinidad and Tobago. They're not doing that. They're not fulfilling that obligation, and this is quite a serious issue.
Well, Mr. Marshall, in the 21 years, this has been an issue that has been publicly expressed. How would you describe the progress or the sort of action that you have seen across this 21-year span?
I could talk directly to maybe the last 8 years of what has happened, and several studies have been conducted. The Environmental Management Authority have done their studies and put out recommendations. They have had public consultations that were very well attended by not only the private sector, by ministries, by state enterprises, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service. They all made comments. And Keaton, coming out of that, the output from all these studies and consultations has been consistent. That has been overwhelming support for additional regulations to manage the dangers of fireworks. 92% of the last public consultation, which was run by the Attorney General's office, 92% of the respondents supported additional regulations for fireworks to protect citizens. Yet nothing is done. Yet they seem to be just seeking one excuse after another to do nothing. The question has to be why? Why this delay? If ever there was an easy decision for the cabinet to make to correct a situation, this should be it. So why all the delays? Why all,
Is there any idea as to why those delays? Any idea at all?
No idea. No idea. They put out ridiculous, I think you also mentioned in your introduction that the previous Attorney General had put forward a bill or proposed amendments to the bill at one point, which were absurd, totally absurd. Those recommendations were actually freeing up 95% or freeing up the regulations that apply to 95% of fireworks usage time, be it Holy as Night, Diwali, etc. His proposal was that no licenses should be required and just giving people the free for all to use fireworks. That is the kind of ridiculous proposal we got. Subsequent to that, we haven't got any proposal, even though the response to the consultations has been so overwhelmingly in support. Let's not forget that fireworks is an impact on crime as well. The youth of today use fireworks as their weapons of choice for their gang warfare. And you would see the videos on social media, etc., come Holy as Night, how dangerous these things are and how dangerous they are being used. And we're just not dealing with it.
I think I remember two stories in recent times. One in East Port, Spain, where fireworks were being played with, led to a mini mart being burned down. A fireworks was discharged at one point. Can't remember the exact date. And a grandmother in a vehicle, I believe, lost her life. There was one instance in which a child lost their fingers because of the use of fireworks. But if you're seeing that there's an element associated with criminal activity as well, do you think that the government's failure to act has also contributed to the risk, the safety of citizens' lives?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is the big problem. We are not necessarily calling for the banning of fireworks. We are calling for responsible use of fireworks. Fireworks, number one, must be taken out of the hands of the general public. You're talking about explosives, you're talking about gunpowder, you're talking about dangerous accessories. They need to be treated with by professionals. So we are calling for fireworks to be taken out of the hands of the general public, that there should be legislated specific days and times that fireworks could be used, and locations should be identified for professionals to disperse the fireworks in a safe manner.
Mr. Marshall, the thing is, I'm sorry to interject, doesn't that already exist? Isn't it already on our law books of Trinidad and Tobago, where it clearly defines where fireworks can be used and who can purchase fireworks?
Not really. The law today says that within the limits of a city, which applies for us, it applies only to Port of Spain, San Fernando, and Arima. So to disperse fireworks within a city, you must have a permit from the Commissioner of Police. Nobody worries to get a permit. They just go about their business dispersing their fireworks. We have had incidents in past years where the big public fireworks displays in the Queen's Park Savannah on Holy as Night did not even get the required license to have the disbursement of fireworks. That's how bad it is. And then other than that, if you're outside of a town, you cannot disperse fireworks within 60 feet of the center of a roadway. Other than that, you are free to disperse fireworks. Now, fireworks today, remember these laws were developed many, many years ago. So fireworks, they are a lot more powerful than they used to be. So when somebody disperses a fireworks now, it may explode 150 feet, 200 feet, whatever, from where it's dispersed. So that leads to two problems. One, it makes that 60-foot law totally ridiculous with no real impact. And two, it makes the enforcement very difficult because the police, you can imagine how can the police identify who dispersed the firework that explodes however many hundreds feet or 100 meters away. It's a very difficult issue. So that's why we need to get out of the hands of the general public, because whatever they put in place, enforcement is going to be a problem.
Mr. Marshall, with the laws that currently exist, are there any measures at all that can be adopted to try and help with this situation? And I'm talking about the legislation that exists. Is there any avenues that can be adopted?
You know, with the stroke of a pen, they could make temporary measures to control the disbursement of fireworks. Just as they did with the scrap metal dealers when they banned that they closed on that industry overnight, supposedly for the safety of citizens. They could do something similar for fireworks. And, you know, so in preparation for this Old Year's Night, I would love to see them do that, you know, and bring out a ruling that the fireworks can only be dispersed X locations at X time by X people. Why can't that be done if it was done for the scrap iron industry?
Well, it seems as though the government has their preferences. If that's a prime example.
And the question is why? Why are they protecting it? They bring up the issue of, oh, but it's employment, it creates employment and stuff. That's ridiculous. The number of people that are employed by that industry is minimal. And the only time that there'll be significant numbers employed, relatively significant, will be for maybe a week or so over Christmas, Old Year's. And, you know, that's it. That's it. So if they're going to use that, I think they need to have to come out and say, well, exactly what is this employment statistic that we are damaging?
At the time of establishing the cabinet subcommittee, Attorney General Amor indicated that the government sought to balance entertainment value with safety and environmental concerns. And he also noted that this any policy required extensive public consultations. What have been the results since the AG made that statement, even in respect to public consultations?
Well, that's it. As I mentioned, they had the public consultation that was well attended, and 92% of the participants supported additional regulations for fireworks, and this included input from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service, the Environmental Management Authority, ministries of government. You would remember 2 or 3 years ago when there was a house was lost to fire as a result of fireworks, and Minister Young came out against it, calling for a ban on fireworks. Minister Gonzalez came out about it, calling for a ban on fireworks. So, you know, even members of the government are in favor of this. Let's just get it done. Let's get it done.
This letter was delivered to the Attorney General on December 4th. Prior to this, what was the last time the coalition actually communicated with the Attorney General? By extension, when was the last time the Attorney General's office communicated with the coalition?
That was in June or July, I could tell you, June or July this year. August. On August 6th, we sent an email asking for an update. Prior to that, on 24th of July, we sent a letter asking for an update.
Any responses to those letters, to that letter and that email?
No. The AG seldom responds. I think the last time we got a response from him was in December last year, December 2023. That is when he advised us of the that this subcommittee had been formed to address the issue.
Now, in that respect as well, sorry, Mr. Marshall, go ahead, continue.
Let's not forget, remember the other day, the Prime Minister himself came out, and I don't want to misquote him, and he said, the selection of violence as a way of life, the love affair of glamorization of firearms, and the wanton disregard of human life in Trinidad and Tobago has now gone beyond concerning to the ridiculous. This intractable situation now demands that the law-abiding citizens be given the right to their peace and safety above the freedom of the laws and the violent few who operate with impunity. Apply that to the fireworks industry. Because that lawless behavior overlaps both the criminal activities and these fireworks activities.
The Attorney General has been given 15 days to give a public explanation as per this situation. Following those 15 days, which I believe is December 19th, what are the next steps, if already planned, on the part of the committee?
Good question. We are groping with what can we do next. I expect that we're probably going to have to go with a press conference. There seems to be very little we could do in the courts because of the timing, and I don't understand all of these things, but because of the timing of when our Constitution was written and when the laws were established, there's little we could do. So it seems that we're just at the whims and fancy of the government, for the government to act responsibly and really protect the citizens as they're supposed to do according to the Constitution. Sorry. Keaton, this does not apply only to the fireworks industry. This abandonment of responsibility on the part of the government is not unique to fireworks. Let's look at the animal welfare legislation. They have impacted over the last 10 years. They have put in place, affected new laws and amended laws to deal with animal welfare. And it all goes with zero enforcement. So what is it going on? You know, both Minister Hossain in the Minister of Agriculture and Minister Al-Rawi in the local government is not enforcing. One is responsible for the Dog Control Act. One is responsible for the Animal Diseases and Importation Diseases Amendment Act. And these all deal with population control of stray dogs, of prohibition of maltreatment of animals, and animal welfare in general. So we have all these laws being passed and not enforced. This is an abandonment of responsibility on the part of the government, on the part of the cabinet, and the part of the ministers. These are the same people who want to assess their performance as good, approve big salary increases for themselves, and this is what citizens are left to be faced with. How do we go forward?
Well, that is the question indeed. And what you've just pointed out in respect to, very little that can be done through the legal system in TNT. Does that suggest, Mr. Marshall, that this is perhaps a fight that is going to be frustratingly delayed, constantly delayed, in the hopes that maybe the coalition will be frustrated out of continuing their advocacy?
Yeah, I think that's what they're hoping. It's already frustratingly delayed. And they're hoping that we just keep quiet and it would go away. But we just got to keep fighting, and we just got to keep going. Just the fact that the Attorney General would not even respond, does not respond. What is wrong with coming out to the public and addressing the public and saying, well, look, this is the cabinet, these are the members of the committee, cabinet appointed subcommittee. These are the members, this is what they're doing, this is where we're going. Talk to the population, let them know what's going on. But no, the silence is frightening. It is frightening coming from this government.
Well, Mr. Marshall, I do hope that come December 19th that there is some response on the part of the Attorney General, and I will say that the coalition for writing to the AG, knowing that he seldomly responds in itself, is a shot in the dark, and hope that works. But Mr. Marshall, I want to thank you very much for joining us this morning. Thank you for being patient for the start of the interview, and we appreciate your time. And well, December 19th, we will know better. We hopefully will have a better understanding.
Thank you, Keaton.
All the very best to you, sir. Take care.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask the question. Exactly who benefits from the sales of fireworks in Trinidad and Tobago? I raise that question because the AG spoke about the entertainment value at the launch of this cabinet subcommittee in respect to fireworks legislation. He spoke about balancing entertainment value whilst also having a focus on environmental and safety concerns. Well, it seems as though the environmental and safety concerns have been thrown out the window completely. Following the death of a kangaroo at the Emperor Valley Zoo, where every year we have Independence Day fireworks being set off, really, that in itself should have been a huge flag for the government in dealing with fireworks in Trinidad and Tobago. And, honestly, fireworks, I grew up watching fireworks. I will admit, I was in awe of fireworks. It was beautiful. But the thing is that I've grown to realize the cons associated with fireworks. And apart from which, there are options that exist. In fact, one individual who has pointed out those options on this very program is that of Ricardo Mead from the El Socorro Center for Wildlife Conservation. And he has even pointed to an alternative of which they're proposing to the government for the use of drones to have a light show. But nothing ever came out of that. So the next question is exactly who benefits from the sale of fireworks in Trinidad and Tobago? Who gains the most from the sale of fireworks? And if we answer that question, would we then be able to have a better understanding as per why there's a delay in respect to legislation? Who knows? We're just looking at every single avenue to possibly seek answers to the reasons for the inaction on the part of the government. Ladies and gentlemen, let us take a break here on AM Prime. We will return shortly. Stay with us.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience. Give us a call at 235-5479 for more information.
The community
Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Here's your chance to win a bicycle, a ride-on, or a hoverboard. Shop at dbesttoys.com and spend $300 or more to win big.
We've got Bobby,
Hot Wheels, Gel Blasters, Ride-ons,
Leapfrog,
Nerf, bicycles and tricycles.
Greco, and Wonder Baby.
Visit us in store at Forces flagship McBean, Mubisham for the Spain,
Eastgate Mall and M6 Plaza Endeavour.
Merry Christmas, everyone!
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus, quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
Holiday season, bring the magic of Christmas home with WESN's Joy of Christmas. Relive timeless classics from the laughter to the heartwarming moments that make the season unforgettable.
Hey, like the lamp, not the rat, like the lamp, not the rat!
Santa's coming to town! Santa! Oh my God!
Oh, baby.
Experience the joy of WESN's special productions, crafted to bring you new stories and cherished memories. This year, let WESN bring the joy of Christmas to your home.
Merry Christmas, Charlie Brown!
Catch the spirit, catch the joy.
Anchors away. May the force be with you.
Only on WESN, your content capital.
Cogería si cogióle la desgracia, qué golpe no llevaría, qué golpe no llevaría, una mujer me llamaba, pero yo no le
Well, it's the season of festivity and merriment. Well, for all of us celebrating Christmas, not necessarily for Cricket West Indies and the executive management. Now, in the first test against Bangladesh, we were quite pleased with the performance. But what happened in that second test? Exactly what went wrong? That's one. The second part is in respect to the criticism of the executive management of Cricket West Indies, most recently coming from Prime Minister St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. Ralph Gonzalez. He has expressed disappointment seeing that Dr. Kishore Shalu and the sort of change that was expected to be brought by him, that was sort of expected to be led on his part when he assumed the role of president of CWI, that has not happened. And then the question marks surrounding the stability and the sustainability of Cricket West Indies has once more been raised, but this time by the chairman of the ICC, Mr. Barkley, who has questioned whether or not it would be more suitable if rather than a regional outfit, you would have islands having their own teams and vying for place in global competitions. We'll get into all of that this morning as I'm joined by our cricket analyst on AM Prime. He's also a cricket analyst on the Face of Sports. So let's welcome Lester Casimir to the program. Lester, good morning.
Good morning to you, sir, and good morning to your viewers and listeners. Good morning.
Lester, put a smile on your face. I know it's a serious topic, but it's good to see you, my friend. Thanks for joining us. Let me start with your assessment of the West Indies test outfit, which also recently came into question by the chairman of the ICC, who said West Indies, we don't think it's sustainable for them to focus on test cricket anymore.
Yeah, I am disappointed that he would come up with a view like that. It's a view that some people in the Caribbean, they hold. I taken a longer while to get around to that view, of course. I am not interested in Trinidad cricket. I'm not interested in Barbados cricket. I'm not interested in Greendot cricket, which happened to be part of the Windward Islands. I'm interested in West Indies cricket. I grew up on West Indies cricket. I grew up with my transistor radio, listening to cricket, walking the streets of Carenage, listening to Bernard Julian getting his finger broken, and Thompson and Lilly and West Hall. I grew up to this, and I am not one of those guys who, I'm very loyal. I'm prepared now and in the future to talk about West Indies cricket. I think it's a selfish act, actually. And I think it's also a very stupid act. Very, very stupid act. When you look at world cricket, you're talking India 1.4 billion. Let's go down to the lowest. You're talking to New Zealand 4.8 million. West Indies 5.5 million, 5.6 million. And we have not been able to consistently repeat what we did for a 17-year period. And the answer is very simple. You need management and you need manpower. You need the people. And so Trinidad decides to go it all on its own. 1.4 million people. Jamaica decides to go it on its own, 2.6 million. And after that, not one single country has 100,000. Not one. Sorry, Barbados, 260,000 people. After that is and Guyana. So what you're dealing with is chaos. Chaos. Let me share this with you so that the public understands. Barbados at one time had about 9 players on the West Indies team. About 9 players on the West Indies team. And you know what they wanted to do? They wanted to succeed. So they had a rest of the world. The rest of the world nearly killed them. In Barbados, the rest of the world nearly killed them. And let's look at what has happened since. What has happened since? Barbados has not been winning any of the tournaments in the Caribbean, or not consistently. At one time, Jamaica won 5 years consistently, so they have decided to secede. There's something else that people aren't aware of. In the Leeward Islands, Antigua is a dominant factor, dominant country in Antigua, in the Leeward Islands. And so they wanted to secede from the Leeward Islands. Not only that the Antigua was poor, the Leeward Islands, the whole of the Leeward Islands, they have been poor, very, very poor. They've been losing the tournament, coming last consistently. So everybody you get an influx of players, or there's a particular period in time where you do very well, and then you tail off. Let's use Trinidad and Tobago as an example. We have been the #1 T20 team for a number of years. Are we now? Are we still now? Somebody else going to take us over. And so we want to go and play against who? Australia? Australia, 20-something million people, and they have a real infrastructure. So they're tuning over players. Let me say this. India, for instance, we could play India 5th team and they will still beat us. 5th team and they will still beat us. Because they have the manpower. They have people. This is a cricket nation. We are in a state of flux because of the head. The fish rottens from the head. And our head has been rotten for a long, long, long while. It's not Dave Cameron that starts the rot. The rot was even before Dave Cameron. Dave Cameron learned from somebody. And a lot of these guys now have learned from Dave Cameron. And so let's deal with the issue. The issue is these guys, unfortunately, they get some money and they just mismanage. I was talking to one of the guys, and I'm jumping a little bit, but dealing with the same issue. I was dealing with one of the guys who was a board member. I during the course of this year, I went to St. Lucia, I went to Barbados, and of course, I'm in Trinidad. And so I've been exposed to some of these guys who are the top. And the suggestion was that these guys, most of them, 95% of them cannot read a financial report. They're on the board. They cannot read a financial report. He is saying this to me as a former board member who's running a successful business. He is saying most of them cannot read a financial report. But listen to this. These guys are running a 50 million US organization. So how could we get these guys to do what they're supposed to do? The fish, don't forget where it runs from. When I started doing this, this is important for me to tell your viewers. When I started being a cricket analyst, of course I was a cricket analyst while I was actually playing. I was a cricket captain of Trinidad U team. And so I kept analyzing things, and somebody recognized what I could do. And so I got involved in analyzing batsmen, bowlers, fieldsmen, umpires, whomever, on the field of play. I never for 1 minute volunteered or wanted to be analyzing or talking about these people who are unimportant. These people are largely unimportant to West Indies cricket, but they play a very important role. They decide where cricket is going to go, how it's going to go, how much money they're going to fix their own backyard, as in one president, for instance, built a part onto his home for the West Indies Cricket Board to have meetings. That's in St. Lucia. When last we had a meeting in St. Lucia? So he has an additional part to his home. There are other guys who took big money, and I'm not going to go into who, but they took big money, and Digicel had to come after them, and so on. So I'm saying to you, these guys are in power. They are in power for one reason. What we need to do is to start to select people who have been successful in business, successful as a lawyer, successful as an engineer, successful as something, and encourage them to come on the board, because what we have are people who have a lot of guts, who could take insults, who could take embarrassment, and they are sent to positions. They are sent to positions, and they represent in Trinidad, you have to have 2. We're going to deal with that just now. And you represent Barbados, you have to have 2. You represent Guyana, you have to have 2. That does not make sense. It doesn't make sense. But we keep doing it. And so we have a problem now where Guyana didn't turn up to a meeting and Barbados didn't turn up to a meeting. And the reason they didn't turn up to a meeting is because you are asking me to decide my own fate. I am not going to decide my own fate, and it's going to be negative. It's not going to.
This was in respect to the adoption of the measures in the Webby report.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you. The Webby report made it very, very clear that they need to have one representative, one. And then my understanding or my feeling should be you look for a lawyer who knows law, very good at law. You look for somebody who's very good in finance. And so these guys, and I'm thinking about 11 persons, 6 from the territories, 5 other experts, and you're going to choose from amongst the 11 a president. But that's not going to happen, because you're not going to stop me from eating a food, according to one of the Calypsonians in Trinidad either. You're not going to stop me from eating a food. This is the problem that we are having. So the Webby report is a waste of time. And the next report that you are probably going to write is going to be a waste of time, because the people who are running West Indies cricket, they're not suicidal. They're not suicidal. They're not going to shoot themselves in the foot. I'm going to recommend something as we go on. I'm not going to, you would probably encourage it. What we need to do to get, and it's not going to be a good, it's going to be aloes actually. It's not going to be a good solution or good remedy for the pain and the suffering that we have been going through for all these years.
No, go on, Les. I want to hear this on your part. What do you think the solution is?
Good. Now, if you are not going to manage yourself, if you are incapable of managing yourself, then this is not Australia. Australia has 1 prime minister. India, 1.4 billion, 1 prime minister. Germany, 1 prime minister. Well, let's do the New Zealand. There are 2 islands, 1 prime minister. You know what we have? We have a set of guys who are prime ministers. Prime ministers. I'm going to tell you some things that are going to shock you. They're prime ministers, and they represent and support the 2 guys from their country. I don't know if you just said it, but I don't know if you understand the magnitude of what you just said. St. Vincent Prime Minister has just taken a dig at Shallow. Have you noticed that? You know why? Yeah. Because Shallow is now on the opposition coming up against the St. Vincent Prime Minister, believe it or not. So everything out of the window now. Oh,
so we're talking about politics now. This is not cricket.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. So I'm no longer going to support you until you lose and give you a few more months and so on. So we're talking politics with Gonzalez. Now, listen to what happened to one of the meetings where this is not the first time that Guyana and Barbados or teams, countries did not come to make a decision.
Yeah, I think that was 2021 or 2022 was the last time.
It's not right. It's not the first time.
Yeah.
Let me make the point so that people understand. It is not only them. Because a Trinidad president, he himself was a former wicketkeeper. He himself did not turn up to one of the meetings. So let's open. It's a playing field. Now, but these guys, they're not going to shoot themselves in the foot. So how do we make these guys accountable? How do we get them to change? Because this is not the first time someone came up with the idea to change the structure of the board. And they agreed to change the structure of the board. But once they decide to change the structure to the board is not going to change because they're not going to turn up. So let me share with you new news. The last time that happened, the president and a number of players, a number of the board members walked out of the meeting with the prime ministers of the Caribbean. So I hope Mr. Rowley is listening because this is important for him to know. A number of the prime ministers, and now this is first-hand information I'm giving you, a number of the prime ministers walked behind those guys who walked out and told the board members, we realize I didn't say anything because I am not in agreement with the other prime ministers. So you see what we have. You see what we have. We have the prime ministers supporting their countrymen, but they say nothing in the big meeting. And then you have those persons who are forthright. It might have been our prime minister, it might have been the Barbados, whomever it is. And they realize that the only way forward is to change the structure of the board because it makes no sense to have two persons representing Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, Guyana, Leeward Islands, Windward Islands. It makes no sense. You could just have the one person and so on. But what you need are experts to then govern these guys, because I just said, coming from the board, member told me that these guys cannot read a financial report. So if you cannot read a financial report and you're dealing with a $50 million US dollars business, we are in trouble. So
let me just ask you something, Lester. Sorry, I'm just curious to know whether or not you think that the criticisms on the part of Dr. Ralph Gonzalez, put in politics aside for a moment, do you think the criticism was warranted? Do you think he's right in what he's saying, that Kishore Shallow has failed to deliver what was expected?
But all of them have failed. They have all failed. How is he coming?
So he's only been in that position for just over a year.
No, he is. Listen to me. And the next one that is coming, he's going to fail because Kishore Shallow learned from Skerrett. Skerrett learned from Dave Cameron. Dave Cameron learned from somebody, from Julian Hunt. And Julian Hunt was poor. But Julian Hunt, they organized themselves. They organized themselves. That's what it is about. And then the worst we have had was Dave Cameron, because there's a narcissistic way of dealing with stuff, right? So each one teach one. So let me share with you. We're going back into history here.
Mm-hmm.
Wes Hall was the president of the West Indies Cricket Board. Wes Hall's income, which was a stipend, was $200 US a month. So he tried his best. He did what he had to do. And even then, we had a lot of issues. When Dave Cameron took over, his income rose to way in excess of $10,000 US a month. Way in excess. Now, I don't want to give you the figure. I just want your viewers to understand.
It was north of 10,000 US, yeah.
And he was all over the Caribbean. Every time he leaves his homeland, it's $250 US a day, 1 day. And then he goes to India, he then goes to Dubai, and then he goes first class. Think of what I'm saying to you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Stipend is $250 plus wine and roses. So you wouldn't give up that job. Hence the reason you're not going to give up the job. Let me say this so that people understand. He and Julian Hunt, they had an agreement. So you understand the level of the thinking of these people. He and Dave and Julian Hunt had an agreement. Okay, so next year, Hunt had a number of stints. He did it twice or 3 times. He said, well, next year, I'm going to turn it over to you. He said, okay, fine, because Dave was going to oppose him now, let's say this year. And so when the time came for him to demit office, he said, no, listen, I have some stuff that I'm still doing. I need another time. Dave Cameron said, sorry. So Dave Cameron learned from him. And then Scarrett learned. And Scarrett is probably the most brilliant academically out of all of them. And so Shallow is there. Shallow is there. And the problem we have is somebody now sitting on the feet, sitting down right now listening to Shallow, who is going to take over the mantle from Shallow. There is no stop. So how do we deal with this? Here, this is my suggestion. We are going to appoint prime ministers, certain prime ministers of the Caribbean, certain prime ministers, and they must take over control of the board. Listen to me, it's Allows. This is Allows now.
Yeah, but how is this going to work? Anyway, go on.
You have to find a way because it's not working any other way. The prime ministers, they will be given control. They have to find a way to get control of this board because I have a set of grandchildren. They are going to go through the same stress that I'm going through here now because we need to say, listen, take over the board for 6 months, a year, and then reconstitute the board where you have one person from each territory. I don't know how long they're going to take it over for, but it can't be for any extended period. And it's not at all the prime ministers of the Caribbean. 3, 4 with steel. And you must have those who to me, from the bigger countries. So it will be Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad. And you could filter in Guyana if you want. But they must take over the board and they must pass it over to the 6 territories, one person representing, and you have people of expertise, but experts to run West Indies cricket going forward. Let me say this to you so we understand. This is not the first time something like this is happening. This has happened in Australia, where Australia had a whole set of people on their board and they broke it down to, I think, about 5. And Australia is a much larger place than the Caribbean. So you have...
but Lester, hold on. The same issues will exist. If currently executives of CWI are in that position because it's enriching themselves, don't you think that the possibility exists where the same thing would happen with prime ministers? And it may not even necessarily address grassroots cricket.
Hold on. The prime ministers, the selected few, are there for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. They are not going to run West Indies cricket. They probably will have an interim board, but what they need to do is to dissolve what we have. It has to be dissolved because they are not suicidal. They're not going to change. They're not going to change themselves. They've shown us twice they're not going to change.
And who is going to select these prime ministers? In fact, in your mind, who are these select 3 prime ministers?
I just give you a hint. The bigger countries. Because what we have, let me share with you so you understand, St. Lucia, or forget St. Lucia, the Windward Islands have been running West Indies cricket for the longest while. And we in a state, we in a mess. A greater mess than before. Because when Julian Hunt took over, Sammy became the captain for the white ball. And he should have been the captain for the white ball. And you know what they did? They put Sammy as the captain for the red ball as well. And Sammy can't play red ball cricket.
No, he can't.
Right.
You're not even coaching red ball cricket,
But let me share this so that people understand. Sammy, when he demitted office by extraction because Julian Hunt had to leave, naturally, Sammy was then exposed and they dropped Sammy from the red ball team. Sammy had a further 2 years on his contract to be the captain of the West Indies team.
So they had to pay him off?
Huh?
So they had to pay him off. If he was dropped as captain, they had to pay him off.
I don't know what would have happened, but our wee boy understand what's happening. He looked after himself. Follow what's happening on the lower rung of the thing, right? You have the physio. You tell me where he's from. All of these guys, most of these guys are from the Windward Islands or Leeward Islands. Because I did not get in the beginning when Irvin Shillington couldn't get onto the West Indies team, but when he probably should have been. So now it's our turn. We're going to pick all our guys, even if these guys aren't qualified. And this is the problem, because Sammy isn't qualified to be the coach of the West Indies team. No way he's qualified. And I have been objecting to that from the first day. But he is our boy. That's who I know. The other persons in the Caribbean, they don't stand a chance until a Jamaican takes over. Then a Jamaican probably will put a Jamaican, which is nonsense. We have had this going on.
But then, Lester, you realize you're making a counter argument to your very first point. You are kind of making a counter argument to your very first point on the show this morning in respect to no separation when it comes to regional cricket. We need to have one regional outfit. But you're also saying that when these countries take over executive management of CWI, they're only going to focus on themselves.
That's the point I'm making. So it has to be imploded. It has to be, because when Gale was the captain of the West Indies team, he took 9 Jamaicans to New Zealand. And by the way, very quietly, when the Trinidad boy was the captain, they had about 8. And you know what we had? We had Joey Carew. We had the president of the West Indies Union, Ramnarayan.
Ramnarayan, yeah.
Yes, this is the madness that we have been having consistently, and I'm observing this, and it is not working. It's not working. So Leeward Islands, Windward Islands, now it's Windward Islands. They say, you know what? This is my turn, and so all they're focusing on is the Windward Islands, and they will slip in some Leeward Islands because you're my boy. Understand, unless this thing is imploded, or we stay from the outside and we explode it, it's not going to happen. I'm glad you work out and you made it simpler for the people of the Caribbean to understand that we are only looking after one another, our own kinfolk. That's what we do.
Listen, we are out of time. I know there's a lot more to be said, but I'll tell you what, let's observe the rest of the ODI series, because we've got Bangladesh until the 19th, and then we could probably extend the conversation a bit deeper. But thank you very much for joining us on the program this morning. Before you implode, I think we'll release you for the day.
I'm heated. But I'm glad we're going to be talking cricket and not these jokers, because they are jokers. Listen to me, I know what I'm talking about, and I see these guys up front. They don't know who I am, unfortunately. They don't know who I am. And so I see them in their elements. I see them, and they perform. They have a good time at our expense. They do.
Well, we're going to have some more time next week following this Bangladesh series to discuss a lot more. But Lester, thanks so much, man. Take care.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
All the best. Bye-bye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, West Indies won that first ODI against Bangladesh yesterday. According to Darren Sammy, West Indies going to ODIs as underdogs. You would have made that argument for Bangladesh, but following that second test victory, I think Sammy actually said something that's accurate. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hold up there for Cricket West Indies for now. We'll wait to see what happens for the remainder of the series, and then we'll be joined by Lester again to give his analysis, a year in review for Cricket West Indies. So I hope Lester's taking note from now. He has about a week to prepare his year in review for Cricket West Indies. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on the program this morning. Thank you to all my guests, to Roger Marshall, and of course Lester Casimir. Thank you to my team in studio, Ryan Gomez-Burke and Mile Wood. And to you, the viewer, well, Christmas is just about 2 weeks away. And I hope that with all the stresses associated with life now, that you are feeling some sort of merriment. I think we need that merriment in our life. But I'm Keaton Shaw, reminding you today is a good day to have a good day. Make it a good day as best as possible. Do your part to make TNT sweet. And we'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
WESN.
¿Qué camino cogería si cogióle las desgracias? ¿Qué golpe no llevaría? ¿Qué golpe no llevaría? Una mujer me llamaba.